Seahawks Today coming up in just a moment. Before we do, want you guys to join the Notis gang. That is a special group among the 12s that turn on notifications, and they are aware of every Seahawks video immediately when it's posted. So if we go live or if the Seahawks make a big move, you're the first to know about it. So highly encourage you to turn on notifications and join the Notis gang. And here's what I'm going to do. If you are a member of the Notis gang, spam gang in the chat, and I'll shout you out next time here on Seahawks Today. Reunited, and it feels so good. That's a great song, right? Well, the folks at Field Goals have put together a list of the top 5 former Seahawks who could return to Seattle. We will examine those 5 names and break those down for you of players that could potentially make said return. And I'll say this as we kind of set the scene here for you, is that we have seen over the last several seasons, Pete Carroll has done a very good job, he and John Schneider, about bringing players back, giving a second stint of some sorts. Most notably, Bobby Wagner was this offseason, but Jarran Reed as well. So with that, let's start with Shelby Harris. Shelby Harris got let go in March as a cap casualty, but we have heard from Pete Carroll that the door is still open to potentially bring Shelby Harris back. So with that said, let's dive into what Field Goals had to say about bringing Shelby Harris back. Seahawks defensive line was much maligned in 2022, but Harris was one of the few bright spots. For now, Harris is a former Seahawk, but don't rule out a reunion just yet on a cheaper deal. It would be nice to see him reunited with Jones, the biggest free agent acquisition for Seattle. Draymond Jones, of course, played with Shelby Harris with the Denver Broncos a couple of years ago. More on Shelby Harris. Joined Seattle in that infamous Russell Wilson trade last offseason and has been around, played for several different teams, from the Broncos, Cowboys, Jets, and Raiders, just to name a few. And when you talk about the issues that the Seahawks had when it came to the front seven, and in particular the run defense, Shelby Harris was not one of those issues. In fact, the overall grade that PFF gave him, he was the 17th highest interior defensive lineman by PFF in all of 22. That he had a very high respected grade as far as that goes. So, Shelby Harris, here's some statistics for you. In 2022, had 44 tackles, 5 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. 2021 had 49 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 6 sacks, and 1 forced fumble. I would love to see him back. We'll see if the Seahawks make it happen or not. So you tell me, should Seattle bring back Shelby Harris? What do you think? Y for yes, in for no. Would you like to see Shelby come back or not? Tell me what you think. Y for yes, in for no, if he should make a return to Seattle. Today's show is sponsored by Z-Biotics. Let's face it, after y'all hit me with a bunch of super chats, I don't bounce back well the next day. That is until I found Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Z-Biotics produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. It's designed to work like your liver, but in your gut where you need it most. Drink Z-Biotics before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. So here is the product, and I'm going to open this for you so you can see. And it comes with 6 bottles that look like these right here. And it's really good for traveling as well, whether you need to put it in the checked luggage or if you just need to put it in the back seat of the car, road trip, whatever. Easy to bring with you. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on the screen right now to get 15% off your order when you use code ChatSports at checkout. You can also sign up for a subscription as well so you can stay prepared no matter the time or occasion. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That's zbiotics.com/chatsports. Use code ChatSports to check out for 15% off. Thank you, ZBiotics, for sponsoring today's video. Next up, after Shelby Harris, is where we find Gabe Jackson at the offensive guard spot. Now, I think that the Seahawks are much more likely to bring back Shelby Harris than they are Gabe Jackson, but the Seahawks are in a bit of transition when it comes to the offensive guard spot. What about Gabe? Here's more from Mookie Alexander. Jackson is 31 years old, which is hardly ancient, but concerns about how healthy he is continue playing as an NFL starter are more than valid at this point. He joined the Seahawks via trade from the Raiders in 2021, and you're looking at a guy that started 31 games over the last 2 seasons for the Seahawks. The grades, though, not that great, if we're going to be all honest with you. Overall grade at 55, run block grade 51.1, pass block grade 53.8, and allowed 2 sacks. We know the Seahawks have some young cats there, the interior of the offensive line, those guard spots. They might be better suited just to play what they have, give those guys a shot compared to the production they saw from Gabe Jackson. More names to get to here in a second, but first, name a player the Seahawks should bring back. Who would you like to see that turned in the Seahawks uniform that should get their jersey back? Weigh in the comment section. Tell me a player you'd like to see the Seahawks sign and let me know. Next up, we find Jadeveon Clowney, and he's arguably the biggest name of anybody on this list. Clowney, of course, started his career with the Houston Texans after being the number 1 overall pick out of South Carolina. Several years later, joined the Seattle Seahawks, but it's been a lot of peaks and valleys. Been very up and down career for Jadeveon Clowney. Went to the Browns most recently, the Titans, Seahawks, and Texans. He is a 3-time Pro Bowler dating back to 2016. And you talk about availability, this is a guy that's made 32 starts in 34 games played since 2020. But here's the catch-22 of sorts when it comes to Jadeveon Clowney. A lackluster 2022 ensued. The production cratered and the relationship with Cleveland ended sourly. Injuries continue to plague the former number 1 overall pick career, and I think the idea of Clowney is far better than what Clowney's actual career has been. It's one of those things, right, where, perception is not necessarily reality. You think that you love the idea of Jadeveon Clowney as far as the talent of a football player, but then the more you read into it, it looks less appealing because he's not going to be very cheap, at least compared to some of the other players. And you don't know necessarily how much you're going to have him of sorts with his injury history that he's had. Last year played in 12 games. He also was very unhappy with his role there in Cleveland. Ended up with 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss, 3 pass breakups, and 28 tackles. What about Clowney? Should the Seahawks bring back Jadeveon Clowney? What do you think? Type S for sign, type P for pass. Weigh in the comment section. Tell me what you think. Should the Seahawks bring back Jadeveon Clowney or not? The fourth of 5 names on our list is where we find Carlos Dunlap with this Seahawks defense. Now, last year, the Seahawks did not bring back Carlos Dunlap. Although he is a talented player, there was concerns about his fit in the Seahawks defense as they were adjusting the scheme last year and all. Ultimately, he ended up moving on elsewhere, and we'll tell you more about that here in just a second. But what about the idea of another reunion of bringing him back to Seattle? Here's more from Phil Golds. He made an instant impact on a struggling Seahawks pass rush until the middle of 2020, but was let go in the ensuing offseason. Dunlap is 34, so finding work even on a rotational basis may be difficult. We mentioned played for the Chiefs, the Bengals, as well as the Seahawks here. Just wasn't necessarily fitting for what the Seahawks were looking for last offseason as far as that goes. 2-time Pro Bowler, 2015, 2016, also won a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the numbers on Dunlap. As you can see, 39 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 1 forced fumble. Not bad last year. The year prior was really solid with 8.5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, and 35 tackles. He is older, and then do you wonder, can he fit into what the Seahawks want to do now? We'll see. What's the biggest need the Seahawks still should address? For me, it's the interior of the defensive line. I've been preaching that for months on end here on this channel. Is that the biggest issue, or is it something else? Chime in the comment section. Tell me what you think the biggest need is for the Seahawks at this point. Last on our list, that's where we find offensive lineman George Fant. We've talked about Fant on the channel several times. This is a guy that most recently was with the New York Jets, played for the Seahawks a couple years ago. Not a bad football player. And in the case of George Fant, it would be very clear that he would be a swing tackle, right? He would be a backup. You would not be asking him to be your starter, but you need a backup plan of sorts if something were to happen to Abraham Lucas or Charles Cross, and George Fant provides a lot of experience, and he's played at a high level before. Here's more from Phil Golds. Fant was set to be the starting left tackle entering 2017, but then the ACL tear in the preseason directly resulted in the Dwayne Brown trade. He finally got to be a full-time starter with the New York Jets, but 2022 was a rough one for him as injuries negatively affected his performance. So with that, we mentioned the injury front. Fant was on IR for most of last year with a knee injury. He's played in 83 games, got a total of about 60 career starts. And we mentioned most recently with the Jets, but previously with Seattle. Here's the numbers on George Fant. Again, I think the thing that I see, they're not good. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Those numbers aren't good from PFF, what they had to say about George Fant. But you're not asking him for the role that he started with the Jets last year. He's not starting in Seattle. I think you can manage that, and you can get better numbers from that of just asking him to be a backup. I think that could potentially work for Seattle, not have to pay the guy too much either. So to recap, our 5 former Seahawks that are still out there that could make a return of sorts include Shelby Harris, Gabe Jackson, Jadeveon Clowney, Carlos Dunlap, and George Fant. So those are the 5 names that we bring up here on today's show. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also, you can hit me up on Threads. I've joined that as well. You can find me there. And also want to know of your favorite Seahawk former players that are still available. We gave a few names out there. Who is your favorite? Chime in. Tell us in the comment section. Let me know. And I'll see you next time here on Seahawks Today.